All right, I figured if we're going to talk about box scores in Europe and how we should interpret these, I figure we should get somebody who's actually been on one of these trips and played basketball on one of these trips. It's our guy, Mike LaTulip, Illini Inquirer basketball analyst, former Illini basketball player. What's up, Mike? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Box scores shouldn't be investigated when there's literally no footage outside of some highlights that we see on Twitter. But let's do it. Let's investigate.
No, let's talk about this. What are these trips like? You guys went to France with John Gross back in the day. What are these like for the players?
Well, it's super advantageous, especially for a team that's has some new faces with both transfers and a few of the freshmen. So to be able to have real games outside of just kind of seeing what you have in an exhibition game per se, or the secret scrimmages that they do before the season, it's good to get things on tape. It's good to break down scenarios that go beyond just playing against each other in practice, where everyone knows your tendencies. And so being able to put that on film is big. But also, it's just, you'll see it. They're very economical with minutes. Guys are going to play big minutes on this trip. There's guys that won't play much at all during the season that will be getting minutes, extended minutes. So you try to pull from it what you can. There's not a ton to pull from it. So like I said, we'll do our best, but the coaches love these types of trips. And I know the coaches are getting multiple coaches, or the whole coaching staff's getting a shot here. So those are the ways in which you benefit from it. But it's really just kind of see what we have and try some things out, type of deal.
If I made a list of ranking what is the most valuable things out of this, is the 10 practices and just the 10 days being around each other, are those like, how high are those in the list?
I think the practices are the highest. I think because they're legit practices, and for the guys, for the freshmen, and for the guys coming in, you get at least somewhat of a taste of what it's going to be like in the fall, when you're likely doing 2 days and practices run 2.5, maybe sometimes 3 hours, because you're trying to blend. It sounds like they did a lot of skill work in the summer, prepping, leading up to being able to get on the floor and be able to implement some things and test some things out. But yeah, I mean, that's what these coaches love about it too. And I think the players, you start to feel like you're in a little bit more of a rhythm, albeit you're flying across the country. So there's the jet lag is real. I think when I was going over there, I was stuck in between Michael Finke and Mike Thorne, so it wasn't a comfortable flight. But and then all of a sudden you're playing a couple days into it, so they'll shake the rust off. But those practices are huge to try to get some continuity.
Yeah, and what's this actually like? You're going to Europe, man. Like, I know this isn't, maybe we were talking about the movie EuroTrip before this, maybe not as crazy as that, but that's a cool experience. Like, it's just
It,
a cool personal experience there.
it's way cooler in retrospect, and I really think that guys have to do their best when they're on that trip to understand you're getting like a free trip overseas. Some of those guys will play overseas, but if you're with your wife or you're with your girlfriend, you take a trip internationally, odds are you're paying some money. And we were just going around Belgium and going to the Netherlands and going to France, and you're in Paris. And the really cool thing that they did, and I wonder if they do something similar for these guys overseas, is when we were in Paris, instead of just taking a whole day sitting on a bus, going around touring the sites, we did the Amazing Race. And essentially we broke off into teams. My team was LaRon Black and Aaron Jordan. And you get €8 and you have 5 different monuments, Eiffel Tower, all these things you have to hit. You have to take a picture there. And it's who can get on the transportation, see those things, take the picture, and get back to the hotel in the fastest amount of time. So it was cool because it was warp speed, right? You'd have to spend the whole day or spend 3 days doing it. But yeah, we won. Our group ended up winning it. But it was sweet. I mean, we were literally sprinting around Paris. We used the Euros for a train to get out to the furthest destination. And then once we got to the furthest destination, that was really it. So we had to sprint back. So I think our last stop was the Louvre, and we were just like sweating, running through. Everybody's looking at us like, what is going on? But it was a blast, man. And we hit Paris on like our 6th day of 10. So there's part of it because you're playing, because you're doing some practices here and there. There is that threshold of 6th, 7th day. Like, all right, I wouldn't mind getting on a flight back home. But now I think now looking back on it, those were 10 pretty incredible days, and we were super fortunate to do that.
What are the games like? I know each game, each venue can be different. Each opponent can be different. What is the actual playing like over there?
It's rolling the dice once you walk in that gym. What type of gym it is? I mean, you can see in the pictures on Twitter, there's like glares in guys' eyes, coming through. It's almost like a Dallas Cowboys stadium where you're facing a certain end zone and you have the sun coming into your eyes. And I remember our first game over in Belgium. Thomas Peters was there, former Illini golfer, Belgium native.
Yeah.
He was at the game, but it was in this small like auxiliary gym, and they played around with lineups in that game, and it was a tight game. And you go into the locker room after the game, and this is your first kind of litmus test, trying to see what kind of team you are, who you are, and you're probably overthinking it as players one way or the other. I know the 2019 trip that those guys took, I think they won by 40 in their first game. So it's so interesting because you'll play guys that, I remember one of our games, there was like a 16-year-old on the other team. And I think the staff was like, oh, we may actually like this guy. Or, it could be a chance for recruiting if you see a young enough guy. And then you'll play the next game and there's a guy that looks like he's 45 years old and presumably has a 9-to-5 in addition to playing for whatever team that we were playing against at the time. So it's just really cool because you start to see that basketball, that's your first experience of basketball going beyond just the United States and AAU and playing college basketball, seeing that, you have people that love it from all corners of the world. And there are a couple of those gyms, because they were so small, if there were 100 fans in there, it sounded like there were 5,000, right? I mean, those are the types of gyms we were playing in. And then when we played the Netherlands national team, I believe is their B team. I think the 2019 team played them also. We got our ass kicked. I mean, we were down 2 at half and they came out and just blitzed us. But that gym was like in their home gym. It was packed. It was a great environment. So you'll get some of that, and you'll get kind of nobody in the stands. So it runs the gamut, but it's what makes it so cool, because at the end of the day, it's still basketball.
This is weird to ask a competitor at such a high level. How much do the results matter to you guys?
Well, when you're in it, it matters.
Yeah.
Like you can't. It's really hard for guys at this level to turn it on and turn it off. I just think playing is playing, because part of it too is you want to go out there and you want to be able to play the way you want to play, because this is still maybe Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins and a few of these guys have their roles set in stone, but for every one of these games, it's a new opportunity for these guys. I know you don't want to look too far into it, but you see Sencire Harris have 5 steals today and 14 points, and that's not nothing. And for a guy that is in a situation where you bring in Justin Harmon, you bring in some other guards, you got Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, like, of course this means a lot to Sencire Harris. He plays that way as it is. And I think when you have a guy like that, that's the perfect guy to have on this trip, because he's gonna play his ass off no matter what continent he's on. So I'm sure that permeates, and I'm sure the rest of those guys can feel that. So it matters. It matters a lot. I know in the grand scheme of things, you probably look back on it, you're like, is this a little game in France? But those are still habits that you're building, and it should be for these guys every time they take the court. It means something.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to these games don't matter. I also don't subscribe to they mean everything. Like,
Right.
But what do you think the staff, what do they gain out of this week, the actual 3 games they're going to have? Like, what can they gain out of this?
Well, I think you see first and foremost for the new guys, how guys react to real coaching outside of a incubated practice environment, right? When we yank you out of a game, right? When you turn it over twice and we pull you, like those types of things, how are guys going to react? what type of guys do we truly have? Because one thing you'll see, and it's not an Illinois basketball thing, it's a college basketball thing. Man, chemistry is great in the spring and summer, huh?
There is.
Guys just love each other in the spring and summer. I mean, this team compared to last year's team, it's just, you hear it all the time. And I was in those locker rooms, and I felt it too. I'm like, damn, look how connected we are.
Yeah.
And then you play a game, right? And then minutes get allocated, and then shots get allocated. And then that's when you really see who you got on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's kind of an underrated, cool element for these coaches. Not only that some of those coaches get to coach, but what type of guys do you have when there's a little bit of adversity? I think they got down by 14 today. So who gets super quiet on the bench, who gets subbed out and makes it about themselves? Like, those habits come to the forefront, and it's that's why this trip is great, because you can, if there's certain guys that have issues, and I'm not saying any of the guys did today, I wouldn't even be able to tell because we had no footage, but those are conversations that you can have, and you'd rather have them in August than in November, December.
This episode of the Illini Inquirer podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life we're faced with tough choices, and the path isn't always clear. This can be with some major life changes, guys, whether it's going away to college, hitting the real world on your own. I know that's difficult. Relationships with significant others, or struggling as a parent. You always need someone to talk to. And whether you're dealing with decisions around your career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate this life thing, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, if you've kind of been wavering about it, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if you don't mesh with that therapist, you can find another one for no additional charge with BetterHelp. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Illini today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Illini. All right, so we're recording this on Sunday night after Illinois comes back and beats the Madrid All-Stars 84-73. As you said, Mike, they got down by 14, something like that in this game. But in the fourth quarter, they win 25-12. The numbers that stand out: 3 of 25 from three, 17 of 31 from the free throw line. Obviously, offensively, not very good. They had 57 rebounds in this one, including 19 offensive rebounds and 42 misses. That stands out. So when you look at this box score, like, what stands out most to you? Like, what are you reading into the most out of this?
Well, it looks like the first game on an overseas trip is what it looks like. 21 turnovers, not shooting the ball well. I mean, that's another thing that you adjust to when you're going over there, is you're using the FIBA ball. FIBA ball is much different than the ball that you use during the season, and they got those 10 practices where they use that ball, but in a game, it's a little bit different. It feels like it's coming off your hands different. But look, I think the 3 for 25 from three, I mean, you get 5 threes from Sencire Harris. Do you love the volume of attempts? Probably not. I mean, because if you look, you subtract his 3-pointers. I know he made one, but that's 5 for 9 from the field. You're over 50%, super efficient. And he was still 6 for 14. But those are things that I think he can, start to be a little bit more economical with. And but look at the minutes, right? Like 21 for Shannon, 19 for Hawkins. Like, that's just not going to happen during the season. I know AJ Red got the start. I'm really curious to see how they did that. I mean, I started one of the games when we were in France, and sometimes it's just maybe you reward one of the groups in practice. I mean, it could be a myriad of things. I'm not sure, but I think the two.
14 minutes, that's probably not happening.
Probably not happening. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's super balanced, but I think two things that you just kind of feel, when you look at it, and I believe if they're allocated the way that they are, I mean, you get 4 offensive rebounds from Goode, you get 4 offensive rebounds from Rogers, you get 8 rebounds from Hawkins in 19 minutes, and you get 5 offensive rebounds and 15 overall from Danger. So, I get the other team's probably missing shots too, but that's something I think the people that went to that practice the other day, you could see. I mean, right? Like, there's there's good rebounders on this team. There's guys that have a nose for the ball. That is encouraging. But 3 for 25 from three, 21 turnovers. I think in 2019, their first game, they had 18. And granted, no Andres Feliz, no Kofi on that trip as well. So guys probably playing a little bit outside of their role. And that's the same thing in this game, right? Like, I'm not sure AJ Red's used to getting a ton of minutes. He turns it over once in his 6 minutes. Like, it's clunky, and it's meant to be clunky because you're trying things out and you're seeing what you got. So I don't expect Quincy to play 16 minutes during the season. He might if he has some foul trouble here and there, but I expect him to have a bigger impact than that just from a minute standpoint. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see that, you're led in field goal attempts by Sencire. How many times that's going to happen during the season? I think 2019, Alan Griffin had 31 points in a game. Tev Jones was like 16 a game out there. And it's just, again, you're seeing what you have, but I think there are some encouraging things on this stat sheet. Now it just remains to be seen if they can find a way to shoot it and progress throughout their time there. But it goes back to what we talked about, right? If they are contested shots because you struggle to get two to commit from your point guards, then maybe this trend continues. So it's on Ty Rodgers, Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, Sencire Harris, guys like that, to make it a point to get into the paint, to try to open up Terrence Shannon, some of these other guys, for cleaner three-point looks as opposed to more around the arc chuck. Like, those are the ones that you don't want. I don't know what the variety was today, but my guess is there maybe weren't a ton of open ones, or maybe there were, and these are just tired legs from the trip.
Yeah, I mean, I think this kind of, if you look into this the same way as the Summer League, the Ryan Russillo, right?
Yeah.
You brought up, like, hey, whatever you want to believe, like, that's what you buy into. But I do think the major questions for this team, for me, coming out of the practice, which is only one practice, and then just seeing a stat sheet like this, a box score, is I came out of that practice saying, I don't know if they have enough shooters because Marcus Domask was injured, and Marcus Domask is a good shooter. And he's out. He's got the hamstring injury. And I think we saw that today. Like, Luke Goody's 2 of 6. The rest of the team is 1 of 19. Like, there's just not a lot of great shooters on this team. And when Shannon and Hawkins don't shoot the three well, you're relying on Goode a lot, because there's really just not a lot of other shooters. I would imagine Quincy gets a couple more up in a real game. But free throws remain a concern for me. Ty Rodgers, 1 of 5. Danger, 2 of 6. Harris, 1 of 2. That's got to be better. Terrence gets to the free throw line. We know that. But the upside of what I see is Illinois is big and physical and long, Mike. They're going to be very good defensively. Sounds like they were very good defensively today. Again, the competition we don't know, and we don't know the opponent's box score here, but it looks like they were really good defensively down the stretch, especially the first quarter. They were really good defensively. So I think the upside of this team is their defense is going to be really, really, really good. Their front court is going to be really physical. It's just going to come down to, do they have enough distribution and shot creation and shot making? And well, that'll have to play out as the season goes along, but there's just not a lot of guys I sit there and go, that's definitely a great shot maker. Luke Goode, we know is. We think Marcus Domask will turn into that. Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins are coming off a poor shooting years, and they don't have a point guard that we know that's going to create for them. That's why Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, I think, is going to be pretty important for this team, and Ty Rodgers obviously is going to be.
Yeah, all those guys are going to be super important for this team. And look, just on the flip side of that too, I mean, think about if they came into this game and shot 12 for 25. Like, would that change your opinion on them as a team shooting the basketball? Like, I think you'd still need to feel like there's things that need to be seen. But yeah, I think, and I don't want to overreact to one game or just the volume of attempts, taking 25 threes in a game. But, there may be times throughout the season where, if you shave down attempts from some guys that probably need to focus getting downhill a little more, then you probably put yourself in a position to take better ones more consistently, and you can shoot a better percentage. Like, it doesn't have to be 25 to 33s a game. If you can hover in that kind of 18 to 20 range and make 7 of them, right? Like, that's a pretty good clip, especially if you're prioritizing good ones. But back to your initial point, yeah, it is like the Ryan Russillo Summer League thing where it's like I don't let Summer League change my thoughts. I usually let them affirm my thoughts. And the point of that is, I'm not reading this box score being like, well, Quincy, he's doing nothing for them this year. Just like you're not like, hey, Sencire Harris, like he's clearly the guy that's going to be taking the most shots, right? But like I look at Ty Rodgers and Luke Goode, you're like, hey, two pretty good rebounders getting rebounds again. Dane Danger, good rebounder, getting rebounds again. Like there's certain things that you can pull from it that actually have some substance. I'm just curious to see as these games go on what true trends emerge, because I think that's the one thing where one game, not a great sample size, 4, it's something, right? Like it's and I will say too, I would fully expect Dane to have a good showing for the rest of this trip, because if there's one thing I've learned from these foreign trips is that bigs do well. Yeah. Mike Thorne did really well on our foreign trip. Georgie did really well in 2019. I think Georgie was close to 20 a game in 2019. And Georgie obviously had his moments, but I just think Dane is going to be one of those guys where every single night he's going to be one of the, he's going to be a mismatch for the other team.
So I came out of last week's practice, Mike, that we were able to see. And again, it's one practice, right? But this is what we could see. It's a sample size I had. I love Terrence mid-range game. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn just showed me the talent they need at that position. Going to have ups and downs. So maybe he could be close to what Jaden Epps was or around that last year. But the other guy who really stood out to me was Sencire Harris. And we know what his defense is. He changed the practice defensively. Today he had 5 steals. But there was an assertiveness offensively. Like there was a confidence offensively that even if it wasn't always the most efficient, like he was attacking the rim. He wasn't afraid to take shots. I think that's really important for this guy. So like, what do you think about just him showing some assertiveness? What do you think that can translate into in the year? Because I don't think either of us expect him to be great offensively, but if he can add something offensively, that he becomes a completely different player.
If he creeps anywhere towards a net positive offensively, I don't know how the hell you take him off the floor. Honestly. And part of that's going to be a concerted effort from him to try to remain as efficient as possible. Because here's the reality. That's a very downhill confrontational driver. Mm-hmm. And confrontational drivers find themselves at the free throw line. So can you be better than 20%? The 20%, I think it was 20, right? 20 something last year. Because you can't be the guy that will not shy away from putting your nose on the rim and then shy away from being the guy who steps up to the free throw line. So that, to me, like that's the next step for him, because even today, 17 for 31 from the free throw line as a team. And if he's going to play, like if Sencire Harris is going to play 20, 25 minutes, and I don't know, maybe that's going to be the case, maybe it's not. Yeah. He's going to find himself at the free throw line. So, and I know this just from having guys that I've been teammates with. If you can rectify that, if you can start capitalizing on opportunities at the free throw line, become a little bit more confident in your offensive game, because you're not afraid of certain situations or, oh man, like I've always said it. If your first thought when you get fouled is, oh shit, that's a problem. Like you have to find a way to wire yourself in a way that's like, that's 2 points, man. Mm-hmm. Like you messed up for fouling. This is 2. Like we're going back the other way. Like I already have it. I'm making these free throws, and like that. And maybe it's lying to yourself at the beginning, right?
Have you ever gone through a free throw slump being the shooter you are? Have you ever had that struggle?
I don't think so.
I mean, you've probably the wrong guy to ask.
I've had slumps from 3 for sure, but free throw line is just, and I don't know, like I had teammates at Illinois, and I've had teammates in my career that it compounds when you're a poor shooter, because what I came to find from poor shooters, it doesn't matter. It wasn't not just in college. It was just anywhere in my career. Poor shooters, they tend to shoot less on their own. And the reason for that is because poor shooters don't like seeing themselves miss. So how can you get better? And like, if it's tinkering things with your mechanics, if it's tinkering things just with your mentality, like anything in life, you've never golfed before, go to the driving range, you're going to have to put up yourself sucking for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't discourage you from continuing to play. It can't discourage you from continuing to like step up to the line and be like, well, this time, like like it has to be short-term memory. And yeah, I mean, it's those type of things can snowball, especially when like for a Terrence Shannon might get 12 free throw attempts in a game. A Sencire Harris might be like 4.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's 2. Maybe it's 1 off of an and 1. So if you go 0 for 1 in one game, you get 2 the next game, you miss both of those. I mean, there's like a week that passes. And now I'm going down a real rabbit hole here with my theory around volume shooters. Like I'm sorry, this is what you get. This is what you get on this pod. But Kendrick Nunn, when he went to Oakland, okay, like the difference between a volume shooter is they can shoot themselves in and out of a slump in the same game. Kendrick Nunn took 16 threes in a game in Oakland, and he started off the game 0 for 7. And I think he finished the game 7 for 16, which would mean he was 7 for 9 on his last threes. But for a guy that's lower volume, that's 0 for 2, and then you go home and sit in your apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to get to those 16 threes, like that 0 for 7 for Kendrick was just the first half. For another guy, that could be 4 games. So like, how are you dealing with that? So I tie it all back to if Sencire can be confident, and it's way easier said than done. I'm not like the way he defends and the way he disrupts, and I don't know, man. I don't know. He's stealing dudes' minutes.
Yeah.
He can do that.
I agree. One guy I want to bring up because I'm writing about him for Monday, and having Luke Goode on the team the entire year. I mean, you see today, 2 of 6 from 3. Yeah, he shot 42% from 3 in a small sample size. Started when he got back from the injury, Mike, started slow as we expected. I think I was of the mind like, hey, a lot of fans, I don't think he's going to change everything right away. And he didn't. But they lose 3 games in a row to end the season. But Luke Goode was a huge bright spot in those last 3 games, 24 points, shot 6 of 9 from 3 in those last 3 games. And this is one of the worst shooting teams in the country last year. And he just looks like he's consistent, man. Like to have that guy is going to be so important. Like he's such an integral part of what they're going to do just because you have to respect it. Defenses have to respect this guy who can space the floor.
Yeah, very similar to the phrase that you would use for Jacob Grandison, right? Like he's a connector. He's kind of that connective tissue, that adhesive to, be kind of a model of what you want when you're out on the court. I think the game that was most impressive to me last year for him, and it was pretty soon after he came back from the injury, was at Indiana. Like it's just, he just made so many plays that make you sit there and go, yeah, I mean, I'd play him too if I was Brad Underwood. I'd play him frequently because
he knows where to be and when to be there.
And certain guys, it's just, it goes beyond just, hey, if you drive right down the slot, like he knows a shift from the wing to the corner, right? He knows, on a drift pass, I need to get down, I need to get into an angle so you can feed me, right? I'm a good shooter. Like those things sound so trivial, and they're just like, guys just don't do it. I mean, how many film breakdowns did we have last year where I'm like, hey man, you going to get in the vision of the passer, or like what's going on here? And you wonder why you're not getting the ball. You're not getting clean 3-point attempts. Luke Goode shows up and he's doing that. So to have a guy like that, and the importance of having a guy like that when you have new faces, freshmen, transfers, because I think he'll push those guys. And I think he just kind of serves as like, oh wait, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? We compete every play. You can see like he has some stuff to him, right? Like he'll talk trash. You can see it, man. Like he's got
the other day he stuffed, I think it was Sencire, and he was talking his crap.
Yeah, I mean it's real. He's a competitor, and he's gonna be play a big part for them this year.
All right, Mike. So we get 2 more box scores on this trip. What are you looking into? What should we dive into once we see another box score with a couple selected highlight clips?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, they go 9 for 18 next game. I mean, like are they a good shooting team now? You want to see. To me, I want to see how I look at turnovers a lot. I know it's going to be clunky, but particularly for Ty and maybe for Dre Gibbs, Lawhorn, guys like that, like, are you taking care of the ball? Are you a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio guy? Or even, maybe on this trip, just as they continue to get their feet wet, are you 1-to-1? You don't want to be in the negative, especially if you're a guy that they want to look to be like, oh, yeah, I mean, here are the keys. So that's what I'm looking for. There's only going to be so much that we can deduce from highlights, right? Like they posted one tonight. Terrence is driving left, Duncan with his left hand. We know that. Yeah, we know. Like we know.
we know with the left hand, he can tomahawk it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right hand. You got a right hand one?
Yeah. So, like those are things that you're not going to be able to read too much into with the highlights, but can Dane be consistent when he should probably have an advantage in most of these games? And then integrating Quincy, right? Integrating Justin Harmon. Like, do they have a game where they pop a little bit, where they can get some confidence? I mean, Aaron Jordan had a really big game when we play. I think he had 17 in one of the games, shot it really well, and it kind of propelled him because he, once the season started, he felt like he had been there before. So can you get a good Amani Hansberry game, a good Dre Gibbs Lawhorn game? You just need, like, if you're a staff, you're like, can we get one, right? Mm-hmm. One where like it really pops and they feel confident about it. So that's what I'm looking for.
Mike LaTulip, thanks for giving us some insight on what we should be looking for, man. And then hopefully we'll have some games in a couple months that we can actually break down, that we get to see everything. But appreciate the insight, man.
Yeah, man. No problem.